The episode opens on a bright quahog morning, the camera panning across Spooner Street before landing on the Griffin house. Inside, Peter is sitting on the couch in his underwear, surrounded by a pile of Pop-Tart wrappers, watching a bizarre commercial for World's Weirdest Twins, a reality show about identical siblings who live together forever. Peter gasps, pointing at the TV like he's discovered fire. "Lois, Lois, Lois," he shouts, his mouth still full of strawberry Pop-Tarts. "You see this? Twins, identical ones. They got matching tattoos, matching socks, probably matching poops. Why didn't we have twins? I feel ripped off." Lois walks in, holding a basket of laundry. "Peter, I think we had enough trouble with one of you." Our Peter suddenly goes into one of his classic cutaways. "This is worse than the time I found out I wasn't the Olsen triplet." The screen cuts to a young Peter sitting between Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen in the 90s. Wearing a baggy floral dress, crying because he's been kicked off Full House for eating all the craft services Twinkies. Back to the living room, Peter is sulking like a toddler denied a Happy Meal. Brian, sipping coffee at the table, mutters, "Peter, you don't need twins. One of you is already a tax on humanity." Peter ignores him and comes up with an idea. "Wait a second, what if we make a twin world? Like, we get twins of everyone in Quahog. Griffin Gags presents Twin World." Cue theme song. When we return, Peter has dragged the family to a rundown strip mall, where a sketchy sign reads, "Clone City, half price today." Inside, a scientist who looks suspiciously like Rick from Rick and Morty, but wearing a "Not Rick, Please Don't Sue" badge, promises to clone anyone for $39.99 and a box of Cheez-Its. Lois tries to intervene. "Peter, this is insane. We don't need clones." But Peter has already handed over Meg first, muttering, "We can always use a backup Meg just in case this one explodes." Meg groans. "Oh great, double the bullying." Smash cut to the Griffin house later that day in chaos. There's 2 Peters drinking beer, 2 Stewies plotting world domination, and worst of all, 2 Megs sitting silently in the corner, staring into the void like sad cats at an animal shelter. The episode then turns into a frenzy of Family Guy-style gags. 2 Bryans argue about which one gets to sarcastically insult Peter more. "I'm the OG Brian," says one. "Yeah, well, I'm the 2.0 model with Bluetooth," says the other, sipping a martini. 2 Stewies bond briefly before realizing they can't both be the evil genius of the house. One immediately builds a shrink ray while the other makes a death ray, leading to a cartoonish laser battle in the living room that sets Chris's homework on fire. 2 Loises create a nightmare scenario for Peter. Now he has double the nagging about taking out the trash. He tries to hide behind the couch, mumbling, "This is worse than that time I got trapped at Oprah's book club." Cue cutaway of Peter stuck between Oprah and Dr. Phil while being force-fed inspirational quotes. Meanwhile, Quahog reacts to the Griffin clone epidemic. Quagmire makes himself 2 clones for reasons, and immediately regrets it when they all shout, "Giggity!" in unison and scare off every woman in a 10-mile radius. Joe gets cloned too, but his clone is inexplicably British and won't stop drinking tea, which annoys him endlessly. Halfway through, the plot escalates when the second Stewie declares himself the better Stewie and stages a coup, locking the original Stewie in the attic with a sock puppet army. Original Stewie hisses, "This house isn't big enough for 2 Stewies, you simpering doppelganger." Cut to Brian, deadpan, "Wow, this is the dumbest civil war since the one between Coke Zero and Diet Coke." The clones start overrunning Quahog. There's twin versions of Mayor West, one that only speaks in riddles, the other that only growls, and twin Consuelas arguing over who has to clean up the mess. By Act 3, the city is in meltdown. Peter, who originally wanted Twin World, is now being chased by 2 angry Loises, both wielding frying pans. "Peter Griffin, you fix this right now," they scream in harmony. Peter, panting and sweating, has a revelation. "This is worse than the time I hired 2 barbers to cut my hair at once." Cue cutaway of Peter sitting in a barber chair, while 2 confused stylists shave opposite halves of his head until he looks like a lopsided chia pet. In the climax, Stewie reluctantly teams up with his clone to declone Quahog using a massive decloning ray, which looks suspiciously like a Dyson vacuum duct taped to a blender. Peter panics, yelling, "Wait, not before I get one more Peter for beer pong." But he's too late. The machine zaps every clone into a puff of smoke. Back at home, the Griffins collapse on the couch. Lois glares at Peter. Well, Peter, I hope you learned something today. Peter pauses, looks thoughtful for a moment, then says, yeah, next time we get triplets. Cue final cutaway. Peter sitting in a crib with two identical baby Peters, all three crying while Lois drinks wine straight from the bottle. End credits roll over, Peter humming the theme to Twins badly. In Family Guy's viral episode Twain's World, chaos begins when Stewie, ever the restless genius, unveils a new upgrade to his time machine and convinces Brian to join him on what he promises will be an intellectual vacation. Their destination, the late 19th century, where they hope to meet none other than the literary legend Mark Twain. When the pair land in Twain's era, they're initially dazzled by the cobblestone streets, horse-drawn carriages, and gas lamps glowing under a sepia-toned sky. But, true to Family Guy's style, the historical magic quickly devolves into snark and satire. Brian takes one look around and groans, "Doesn't history pretty much suck?" before rattling off infamous disasters and dark moments like the Crusades' Hitler, only for Stewie to fire back with the now infamous line, Prince Harry marrying Meghan Markle, delivering the biting cultural gag that set the internet ablaze. From there, the humor spirals. Cutaways show exaggerated reenactments of Harry and Meghan's wedding, spliced with absurd historical parallels, like medieval knights debating royal gossip or a grumpy Winston Churchill shaking his head in a parody newsreel. Meanwhile, Twain himself, portrayed as a weary but sharp-witted observer, becomes a sounding board for Brian's existential complaints and Stewie's smug attempts to improve history by giving Twain advice on his next novel. Advice Twain pointedly ignores, noting that the baby in overalls and the talking dog aren't exactly literary critics. Back in Quahog, Peter is blissfully unaware of the time travel adventure until Lois mentions that Stewie's been gone an awfully long time, sparking Peter to improvise as a babysitter for Rupert, Stewie's teddy bear, which somehow ends in a subplot where Peter tries and spectacularly fails to launch his own line of emotional support bears at the Drunken Clam. The episode stitches all these threads together with Family Guy's signature rapid-fire cutaways. Quagmire stars in an absurd sketch about Victorian dating etiquette. Joe appears in a gag imagining what 19th century policing would look like with a broken wagon instead of his wheelchair. And a surreal sequence even features Harry himself breaking the fourth wall, muttering, "Again?" as he watches the show lampoon him, before turning to the audience to sneer, "Oh, like all of your wives are so much better." The joke both skewers celebrity culture and toys with the meta nature of satire. By the end, Stewie and Brian realize they've caused more havoc than history could handle. Twain's typewriter is broken, a gas lamp explodes, and an awkwardly placed Family Guy cutaway shows Twain pitching a sitcom pilot to HBO. The duo hastily escape back to the present, only to find Peter has staged a welcome back party that somehow devolved into a bear fight in the Griffin's living room. The closing beats wrap with Twain, now back in his own time, sighing as he muses about a strange baby and dog visiting him from the future. While Family Guy leaves viewers with one last stinger, Brian looking into the camera, wine glass in hand, declaring, "Well, at least we didn't ruin history. Just Harry's Google alerts."